Hey everyone, Jim T. Graham with RC Groups. I'm excited to be back with Mike from Hitec. What's going on, Mike Mayberry?
Hey, Jim. Nice to have you back. Thank you.
S- So we were chatting it up. We were talking about some common questions that are asked, and then I said, "Hey, is that a new charger behind you?" And
Really?
indeed, a charger has slipped right past me. It's the RDX2 1000, and I said, "Well, hey, man, we've got to talk about. Let me go here so you can see it. We've got to talk about this hot new charger." And we're going to talk about all the features and all the things you can do with it, and just all the things that a person who's in love with battery chargers. I was telling Mike, I have had the same two high-tech chargers for how old is the X4?
Well, the original X4 would have come out like 15 years ago or so.
I bet
The
money
one that
mine
had the
is an
four
original.
screens,
Hmm.
that was really popular. And then we had the AC/DC version. Those went for several years. Then we came out with a newer version, which has big screen. It's the red one. It shares the wattage. So you have two ports that share 100 watts, and you can divide that wattage. So where before you had 50 watts a piece, there was no more going on. And the big thing with chargers is that some people don't understand is the wattage really drives how powerful the charger is.
Got it.
A charger may say that it'll charge 6S and it'll charge up to 10 amps, but it doesn't mean it'll charge 6S at 10 amps unless it has the wattage that would handle it.
Got it. Well, my point is my chargers have done me, and I'm talking. I charge little batteries and I charge big batteries, and it's stayed with me the whole time. And I bought two for when the first one died. And I have to admit, I almost never use the second one. I've never had to break the backup charger out unless I have a bunch of batteries.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's whip out the RDX2 1000 and talk about all the cool stuff. And then I'm going to pull the page up too so we can go reference that when needed.
Okay. Yeah, so the RDX2 1000 is a AC/DC charger. I'll show it to you here. So it's an AC/DC charger. It's two ports. Um, and it will do 450 watts on AC, which is a tremendous amount of power for AC charger. It will do up to 1,000 watts on DC, meaning that if you plugged it up to a car battery, you could actually charge up to 1,000 watts. So this charger has a very high charge rate capability. So with the two ports, you can charge up to 20 amps each on each port. So 20 amps times two. And for bigger batteries like the 6S stuff with 400, or let's just figure you got a 225 watts a piece on the ports when they're using at the same time, you can charge almost 10 amps on a 6S battery, which is a lot of these batteries are big. Let's just say they're 10,000 milliamp batteries, so you could charge at a 1C charge rate, meaning one times the capacity. That's what 1C stands for.
Got it.
And then you can also charge at a higher rate, up to 35 amps, by putting the ports in parallel, which there's a parallel wire that comes with it, and you can charge up to 35 amps. Now, the reason for that is not necessarily for the airplane guys, it's for the car guys. The car guys are all about power and having their batteries output the most amount of power so that their
Okay.
motors are going to go faster. And what they found is that if they charge at a very high rate and discharge at a very high rate, which we actually offer an optional discharge module, and that can discharge the battery at 40 amps. So charging the battery at 35 amps, discharging it at 40 amps, and then recharging it back up at 35 amps gets that battery warm, reduces the internal resistance, gives them the power that they want. So this charger is geared towards that surface market guy, but
Okay.
also it's definitely for any type of battery. But if you want to charge at a higher rate or bigger batteries, more cells, this is definitely the charger to go for.
So, do you think this is a tech call coming through? A tech question?
It's possible.
Should we check?
No, I put my do not disturb on. I don't know if they must have known my extension or something. So
Oh, got it.
we'll but my phone rings quite a bit, and
Yep.
it is fun talking to all the customers. Um, but one of the things we were talking about earlier is what are some of the common questions, and one of the most common questions is I've got my high tech charger. I've got this battery. How do I know what to charge it at? What charge rate do I charge it at? And earlier I'd mentioned 1C, and they said, well, what does that mean? And 1C means it's 1 times the capacity. So if you have a 5,000 milliamp battery, it's at a 5 amp charge rate, and that will typically charge the battery in about an hour. So that's the standard charge rate that I recommend for most people.
So let me say, I've always charged at 1C,
Hmm.
but I've always felt like I was a slacker because everyone at the field seems to be charging at 3C, right? Is it harder on the battery?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So it's harder on the battery, but the batteries nowadays, like we were charging at 1C, 15 years ago when lipos were early on,
Yes.
and they were rated for, let's just say discharge rate. So they're rated for 10C or 20C. Now they're rated for 50C and 100C, and that means that's the discharge capability. So you're talking about
Okay.
100 times the capacity. And some of these numbers are kind of crazy, and they it's almost like they're throwing stuff out there, and realistically, the batteries, the higher the C rate, the better they're going to handle higher discharge rates. They're not going to get as hot. If you try to discharge a lipo battery much higher than what it's capable of, the voltage will sag, the battery will get hot. It's just not going to perform. So with the more modern batteries, you have the capability to charge at higher rates. I won't hesitate to charge it at 2C, 2 times the capacity. So you get it charged in twice the amount of time.
Right.
Again, we're
Or
talking
half
the
the amount of time.
you know 35 amp charge rate on a 5,000 milliamp battery. Let's do the math, right? It's 6 times, right? So, but it's harder on the batteries. But the thing that's that really damages batteries is over discharging, um, not putting them in storage mode, those type of things. So anywhere from 1 to 2C is with a modern cells is going to be fine.
I would like to go ahead and admit that I am the absolute worst on lithium polymer batteries. One of my favorite things to do is to fly the plane, not unplug the battery, and then realize that days later, run into the shop and realize I've just killed another battery. Anything you can do wrong to a lithium polymer, short of being unsafe, I keep them in cans and I keep them in a safe place. But I certainly will and have, and we'll all. I don't know. Evidently, I can't be a good lithium polymer tender.
Leaving them plugged in is the worst thing you can do.
Sure. Yeah, of
So,
course.
but most of the time now, with the airplanes especially, there's no on-off switch. It's plug it in, it's on, it's live. Unplug it when you're done. So that's actually not a bad thing to have it be that way. So you don't leave them plugged in. But discharging them below 3 volts per cell,
So
you can actually kill them. There are some techniques to bring them back. They can be a little questionable, so
yes,
I'm not going to put that on the video. But if
it
you want to
reminds me
call
of
me, I'll
the.
tell you a little bit about it.
Yeah, I had the first charger I had was then everyone realized the most dangerous charger a man could own, and I bet I still have it around here somewhere because I refuse to sell it. Which is another great reason to buy a really reputable um, charger made by people who know what they're doing. It's not 2006 anymore, so maybe it's time to upgrade.
Well, Jim, some of the first charging that we did, back when I first started getting into it, was a hot wire, and you just plugged up this cord straight to the battery,
Whoa!
and
Wow!
it just charged it until you unplugged it,
Right.
and so that was, and those came in the old associated team associated 12 scale cars, and so back before there was even the timers, we were just hot wiring this stuff. So things have come a long way. People ask, how do I know when the battery's going to be charged? It's going to charge, and it's going to get fully charged, and it's going to shut off. So
Didn't say full.
you're gonna tell you. One thing though that I will tell you, and I do get a lot of calls about this, is when charging nickel metal hydride batteries. Nickel metal hydride batteries have a tendency to false peak, meaning that they'll shut off because the voltage will drop and it thinks that the charge is done. So what you want to look for in charging nickel metal hydrides is that the batteries will be significantly warm when it's done charging. So if the charger shuts off and it's not warm, and like noticeably warm, like you'll be like, oh, that's warm. It's not done, and you would need to restart the charge process. But I always tell people, keep an eye out on what the milliamps that went in, how long did it take, is that what you would have expected, the battery's warm or not, so if you when you're charging nickel metals, it's always best to keep an eye out for a false peak and make sure that if it did false peak, just restart the charge process.
Now, I haven't flown a nickel metal in years, back in my Hobby Lobby days. But as I recall, let's say it was cold outside. Is nickel metal the battery you'd put on your dash and turn the defrost heater on to warm the battery up to get the current to flow more freely? It seemed like they would flow less freely if they were cold.
Batteries when they're cold, they do act a little bit differently. I never really suggest
Preheating.
manually warming anything.
Once again, don't listen to me when it comes to anything battery.
So this is the show of what not to do.
Yes.
No, with nickel metals, this receiver batteries, they're not used as much obviously for power. Lipo is what everybody's using for power in the airplanes and the cars and stuff. Still use a little bit in the cars for the nickel metal, but it's your transmitter batteries, it's your receiver batteries and stuff like that typically they're charging. And the high-tech chargers will charge every type of chemistry. So from NiCad, nickel metal, lipo, lithium ion, high voltage lipo, the LIFE, LIFE, again, the charger will charge to the battery's full, and then it's going to shut off, and it's good to go.
Well, everybody, we've been talking a little bit about charging tips, and we've also been talking about the RDX2 1000, which I will make a feature about, where you can go read all the features and specs. And I'll also drop this video in, and then I'll have a direct link to this page so you can go find out all and everything that you might want to know. We've been talking to Mike from Hitec, and this is a high-tech how-to. And today we're just talking battery charger tips. We don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but when we do, we'll tell you. Mike, thanks for your time. And I want to thank everyone out there that hangs out with us on YouTube.
Thank you, Jim.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, guys.